I enjoy the show. I really love the people on the show, and Happy Days has given me a lot. So if I can find a way to do that, continue doing Happy Days and still grow away from the show, getting to produce things like Leo and Laurie, or direct things, why then I think I would try to stay.
Practically every interview we see on television or we read where Henry Winkler is involved, he goes into this long thing about his friendship and his admiration for you, Ron. And yet sometimes he says that he has real guilt feelings about the fact that you're the star of Happy Days and yet so much attention is given to the Fonz. What is your perspective on that?
See, I think Henry is probably real sensitive about that, because that's sort of the type of person that he is, you know. He doesn't want to step on anyone's toes. He doesn't want to alienate anyone. He's really just a nice guy. And from my perspective, when Henry is an excellent actor, and he really created an outstanding character almost out of nothing. And when the public really caught on to that character, why, I felt that if I were producing the show, I would place more emphasis on that character too. And I never really felt slighted because I felt like my role on the show was still a good one. In a lot of ways, I'm more comfortable being almost a straight man than to try to actually be the funny one. And so often in the first year or so, Richie was thrust into this situation, the Richie character, where he had to sort of try to make the show funny, and it wasn't always funny because the Richie character is pretty straight. Biggest thing that I learned from John Wayne is the importance of honesty and personal integrity on screen, in your work, and in your own personal life, in dealing with the press. I don't think that man ever lied to anyone. There were times when interviewers, for example, would come on the set, and he'd sit down and he'd have a conversation with them, and they would bring up something where they knew he had a, you know, kind of a controversial stand on it, and he never backed away from that. And then the interview would be over, and he would come over and he'd say, "Boy, they're going to roast me on that one, but what could I say? They asked me the question," you know. And I always thought that that was great, because here's a guy who's been in the business all of his life and certainly understands that in many ways it would be easier for him to hedge, but I don't think he really ever did. And so that was one thing. Second thing that I really learned from John Wayne was that it really does pay to be a pro. I mean, there was never a time when John Wayne was not on the set, working on his lines, working on the scene, and you know, he had just turned 70, and here he was working real hard as anyone on the entire set. First guy in the morning. I mean, it sounds corny and cliche, but he was there. He was in makeup. He was working on his lines, and that's why he built a career, and that's how he sustained it. It was just hard work.
What do you remember most about working with John Wayne?
The only thing that he told me was he felt that an actor should be careful of over-emoting. He feels like that you create a character and then emotionally you expose just so much, and then you let the audience take it from there, and then they're going to actually feel the emotion stronger. They're going to be harder hit by what you're doing.